Well, it's only been a week and a half since the Calgary Flames finished their regular season, missing the playoffs this year, and we're already looking ahead to what looks like another pivotal, franchise-defining offseason for the team. As we welcome you to another edition of Flames Talk Extra, it's Pat Steinberg along with you, host of Flames Talk on Sportsnet 960 The Fan and wherever you get your podcasts. And yeah, we found out on Monday of this past week that I guess the biggest question, the last time we did Flames Talk Extra, we were talking about what Brad Treliving was going to say at his end-of-year media availability. Well, we never got that end-of-year media availability because on Monday we found out that Brad Treliving and the Flames were parting ways. They called it a mutual parting of ways. Brad Treliving stepping away from the organization, and Don Maloney steps in as the interim general manager. And kind of lost in the shuffle of this whole thing was the fact the Flames also promoted Maloney to president of hockey operations, and he's going to not only spearhead the search for a new GM, but he's also going to be the guy at the very head of the hockey ops department, at least when it comes to title. Now, Maloney has been very adamant that he does not want the general manager job. He feels like he's had his opportunity to do that. He's been a GM twice before, so he's going to hand the keys to the new GM, whoever that might end up being. But for the time being, he's going to be the guy taking care of the day-to-day. He's going to be the guy taking care of the clerical stuff and any types of signings or anything else they need to do before they hire a new general manager, which is good to have in place. But it raises the question, after 9 years of Brad Treliving, and what I think, and I know there's some disagreement in different parties, even when it comes to different Flames fans, certainly outside of this market here in Calgary, but what I think that Brad did a pretty good job. And all things considered, over 9 years, I believe the team is in a better spot now than they were when he started, and I appreciate the fact that he was always willing to take swings, and he was always willing to take the bat off his back, and he was very rarely caught napping on things, or at the very least, he very rarely didn't decide to take that big swing. And so, look, the playoff success was fleeting in those 9 years. They ended up winning. The furthest they went was winning one game in the second round in a couple of years. So it's not like they had mass success in the playoffs. But I believe that they are in a better spot, and he put them in a better spot, and the team, in terms of the way they go about their business and how they're built, is better in the 9 years that he was the GM than what we saw prior. That being said, there is now an opening for general manager, and it now becomes really interesting to see what the Flames are going to do and what type of GM they're going to hire. Now, Maloney's been very adamant. He believes they need kind of a progressive thinker. He used the word young a number of times, and I think they're just looking for that next guy. They're not necessarily looking for another established name, because in Maloney, they've got that experienced guy, right? They've got that guy that can or that has been there and done that and has been a GM before. So if they're looking for a guy like Chuck Fletcher or Ron Hextall or names like that who are out there that have been GMs in this league before and have been at multiple spots before, it doesn't sound like that's the way the Flames are looking. Instead, it looks like they're looking for that assistant general manager who has done a lot of things, who has touched many facets of an organization, and is looking for that opportunity. And that's why everyone in this market is talking. I think the most buzz right now is about assistant general manager Craig Conroy. He has been an AGM with this organization for more than 12 years. He has been associated with the Calgary Flames for more than 16 years consecutively, and there was a brief hiatus when he was a player in Los Angeles, but really, Conroy has been synonymous with the city of Calgary for, going back to 2001. So we're talking about more than 22 years since he's been very much entrenched in this community. So if you're looking for a guy that knows the city, knows the organization, you've got that. We're talking about a guy who's been in hockey ops for 12 plus years, and he's touched everything in the organization. He's been heavily involved in the draft. He's been heavily involved in junior and college free agents. He has been very involved in pro scouting. He's done a lot of European scouting and traveling. He's currently in Switzerland for the U18s, scouting over there. He's done contracts. He's kind of been that right-hand man for Brad Treliving for the last almost decade. So, and just knowing the popularity that Craig Conroy has in this city, and I can tell you, if you're not from Calgary, the guy is extremely popular. He's a huge personality, and you've got a ready-made ambassador. And I think Conroy should be the front runner for all that he has done and for all that he has accomplished. He's been very successful in the things that he has touched in the organization. So I think he should be a guy who's right at the front of the list. He's interviewed before. He's been a finalist before for GM jobs in this league. So he kind of fits that bill. Now, the other internal guy that's really interesting is Brad Pascal, who joined the organization in 2014. So about 3 years after Craig Conroy went into management with the organization. Pascal has, since getting here, run the American League team, which has had a good amount of success, especially recently. The last 2 years, Calgary's #1 affiliate has been one of the best teams in the American League, and he has run all facets of that. He's done contracts. He's made trades. He has been the general manager of Calgary's American League team. This year, it's the Calgary Wranglers share in the same city, and I think he's going to get a look, and should, because he's done a lot of the GM work and been heavily involved in contracts and team building just at an American League level. So I think he's going to get a look. And then there's going to be myriad candidates around the NHL, whether it be assistant general manager, some of the names that have been brought up, Rich Peverly in Dallas or Sean Horkoff in Detroit, Eric Tulsky in Carolina. There's just 3 names that have been thrown around, and they won't be the only ones as this conversation continues. But, sometimes I think going internal, you can... You're not always doing yourself the best service, and sometimes I think going internal, you block yourself out from external candidates who could be really good fits. But in this case, the internal candidates the Flames have fit the bill and also fit the fact that they know the organization, they know how to work with this ownership group. I just think there's a real value of looking hard at your internal candidates like Conroy and Pascal in this case. We'll see what the Flames end up doing. You don't get the sense that this is something that they're looking to do really urgently. And then there's the other side of this, or not even the other side, but there's the other facet of this, because there's a lot of questions about the future of head coach Daryl Sutter, and those questions were not necessarily put to bed on Monday when Don Maloney, who is now the president of hockey operations, and the Flames CEO John Bean spoke to the media Monday after they announced the news that Brad Treliving and the organization had parted ways. And Maloney was asked about the future of head coach Daryl Sutter, and I don't know if he gave the most confidence-inspiring answer in that regard.
Is Daryl Sutter your coach next season, or does that have to be reviewed?
I am reviewing everything in the organization, in management, coaching, players, scouting, how we, first of all, with the idea that what happened and why we underachieved, and how we make this the best organization to attain our goals.
So the fact that you didn't get that vote of confidence from Don Maloney, yes, Daryl Sutter is our head coach, I think raised a lot of eyebrows, because there was a number of people in this market who believed that with Brad Treliving leaving, that the coach had kind of won a power struggle and he was now bulletproof, and the next general manager coming in would have to inherit Daryl as the head coach. But that answer leads you to believe otherwise. And also, just everything that we understand, it really does feel like, and the read from us here in Calgary is that when Don Maloney talks about them undertaking a big-time review of the organization, we're not talking about that being lip service. Right now, I believe that the exit meetings that Maloney and management had with players after this disastrous regular season, I think they made an impact. And I think right now they are determining how much of those exit meetings were just about the emotion of a really disappointing season, and how much of those exit meetings, they're things that they really have to act on. And part of that, I think, does involve head coach Daryl Sutter. And so I don't know if Daryl Sutter will remain the head coach of this team. And I think that I think right now, Eric Francis used this term on Friday's edition of Flames Talk, wherever you get your podcast, and kind of used the term twisting in the wind. And I think that's exactly what we're talking about. Daryl Sutter has a contract extension that kicks in this season. It's a 2-year extension, but I don't think that we're talking about him being safe or fully confirmed or fully in place to be back as head coach next year. And I will say, if they make a decision about Daryl and it's going in a different direction before they hire a general manager, well, then you let the new GM hire his new guy. But I also don't think you're helping your cause if you bring in a GM and say to him that, well, the coaching position is already figured out. Because I don't think that's the right way to go about building your organization and putting the organization in the best place to succeed either. If there is not a decision, or if the decision is, for now, Daryl will remain the head coach, then when you hire a new general manager, if that GM believes there needs to be a change, then you have to give him the autonomy to do so. And that's really important. So they got to get this GM hire right. This review is going to be fascinating as well. And the future of the head coach is very much up in the air right now. And hey, we've already started with the first answer that the Flames needed this offseason. What is the future of Brad Treliving? We know that he is no longer the GM after 9 seasons. But now we need to figure out what's going to happen with the GM. What's going to happen with the head coach? They've got 6 high-profile players entering the final years of contracts. As we talked about on last week's Flames Talk Extra, Elias Lindholm and Michael Backlund did not give the most confidence-inspiring responses about their futures with the organization entering the final year of deals. They've got a lot to figure out, and the offseason that I didn't think there could be an offseason that topped last summer for the Calgary Flames with the Huberdeau trade and the Kadri signing and Gaudreau walking away and all of what went into that. Well, we might be talking about it this summer, and it might be even more wide, far-reaching implications for the Flames organization, because right now it feels like they are very much at a crossroads in terms of what direction they're going. Thanks for joining us on Flames Talk Extra. My name is Pat Steinberg. You can get Flames Talk every weekday on Sportsnet 960 The Fan from 4 to 6 p.m., or go get us wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love to have you along for the ride on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcast. Until next time, this has been Flames Talk Extra. My name is Pat Steinberg. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon.